that's coming on. So please participate. Come on out and let's celebrate after we do some of the work throughout the month of June, and then come on and culminate at the end of the month for the ball. The ball will be Sunday, June 29th, the last Sunday in June. Advance tickets are $25. At the door is $30. Of course, we're gonna be doing a little entertainment and serving some African cuisine. So you guys get to come out and wear your best gear. Come on out, fellas. We always tend to have more women than men, so come on out and participate, and so we can have a good time. I think our good brother Terry King Bay is going to be spinning the tunes, so we're gonna go old school on you and just have a good time. So you can also always, call me 216-323-6155, 216-323-6155 if you want to get tickets. In the remote studio, we got our good brother Robinson there. What's going on, brother Vince?
Well, we've got some events coming up at Larchmere Arts. This coming Friday, you will be entertained by Gloria Cummings-Jones and her fantastic trio comprised of Ed Ridley, Elijah Gilmore, and Brad McGee. So come on through. It's always a good time, and she's going to have some other folks sitting in with her, so you'll enjoy that. And don't forget, on June 7th at Larchmere Arts, we're going to do percussion and poetry with, again, Brother Elijah Gilmore on drums. I'll be playing piano and bass, and we will welcome some open mic poets to the stage, and I might do a few things there as well. So we welcome your attendance at that event. It's always a good time, and you need to have your face in the place. That's Larchmere Arts, 12726 Larchmere Boulevard. And one other thing I'd like to let you know, the cat is out the bag. The Larchmere Cultural Arts Festival will take place July 11th through 13th in a few different venues, including Unbar, including Kings and Queens Cultural Village. We're going to incorporate Literary Cleveland into that event, and also a Dune Spice Company, which is right across the street from Larchmere Arts. So mark your calendars for that. Details will be coming out soon. So with that said, we have a fantastic show, as Brother Antonio indicated, and we have a guest to assist us with that. He is Sekou Kelleh, and this brother, he's doing some big things, y'all, and he has his pulse. He has his eye on the pulse of the continent of Africa. So we're going to talk about what's happening over there in West Africa specifically, and things that you should absolutely know about. Brother Antonio?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So it's definitely, see, what we're going to approach today, and I couldn't think of a better person to talk about this, that I could easily get a hold to, and I'm sure he adds so much more flavor to what we're talking about. You always used to hear, and back in the day, I know I did, African Americans talk about what exactly going on in Africa, why Africa seemed not to have themselves together. There seems to be confusion and issues going on with leaders and corruption. They sitting on great resources, but never have the ability to use those resources to their benefit. And we seem to be over here in America scratching our heads and wondering, how is that? Why is that? I don't know if that just kind of goes along with our presence here in America, because we offer a lot to this country, but we tend not to really benefit the way we should benefit from our talents over here in America. So I used to always say, when we was going through slavery situation here in America, what do you think Africans was doing? Chilling at the beach? They were going through some of the same atrocities that we were going through over here in America. And then some people always say, well, Africa never reached out and to us while we was over here and to help us or to consolidate or things of that nature. Well, we're going to unpack some things in reference to that and discuss what actual covert or overt plan that has taken place in order to keep Africa the way it is, the games that is actually being played. So we're going to talk to our good brother Sekou about that, and we're gonna try to unpack that once we see the video. You think we want to run the video now, Vince, and then unpack it and go from
Give
there?
me just a moment with that. Then,
Okay. Well, brother Sekou, introduce yourself again, and what you're doing. Any plans going on? Any lectures? I know you talked last time. You talked about the podcast that you were going to be starting soon. So anything our audience need to know?
Yes. Peace and blessing. I don't know if I'm going good. My internet seems to be fluctuating. I hope it's better. Yes, I'm happy once again to be back on this platform. Peace and blessing to all the family and the host of 360 Info. Thank you very much for having me here. Again, I'm so glad and honored to be here. And thanks to our audience out there who are always listening and supporting this program. And I urge you to continue to support this program because it's about information. Information is very, very powerful. Yes, for me, I'm doing very well. The last time I was on this platform, I mentioned a lot going on, setting up my own channel to do book review. I have set it up, but I have not really started putting on content yet. Recently, I was elected vice president for the Association of Liberian Immigrants in Kitchener. It's an organization that is, I think I'm going off and on. So it's an organization. Yeah, there's an organization that really deals with organizing our people here, organize social work program for our African community here, and also doing a lot of work. And my area of interest is the youth, helping youth not to be involved with drugs, not to be involved with crime and all of that, organizing workshops and telling them how to be very, very careful about the effect of drugs on their future, on their lives. So these are the things we are doing down here. So I'm very happy to be here today to share about news and current affairs on the African continent. And today's program, we'll discuss a variety of things, a lot of things that will come up, we'll discuss. So thank you for having me.
All right, my brother. Good. How are we looking, Vince? Are we good?
Yes.
All right, so
if you wanted to stop Africa from becoming a superpower, you wouldn't have to invent a new strategy. The blueprint has already been written, tested, and perfected over centuries. You'd start by making sure Africa never unites. The easiest way to do that is by keeping people divided along ethnic, tribal, and religious lines. If they ever start working together, remind them of past grievances. Stoke old wounds, fund separatist movements, keep border disputes unresolved. Make sure every time they take one step forward, they take 2 steps back because they're too busy fighting each other. You'd install leaders who serve foreign interests, not their people. Find the most corrupt, the most easily manipulated, the ones who crave wealth and status more than progress. Offer them power in exchange for loyalty. If a leader rises who actually cares about Africa, get rid of them. Assassinate them if necessary. But if that's too messy, just destabilize their government and back a coup. If they talk about nationalizing resources, make an example out of them. If they try to unite Africa, take them out before the idea spreads. You'd keep Africa economically weak by making sure it never industrializes. Let them export raw materials, but never process them themselves. Control the mines, the oil fields, the rare earth minerals. Keep them selling cheap and buying expensive. If a country tries to break free and build its own industries, sabotage it. Place sanctions, destabilize its currency, fund local opposition, crash its economy. If that doesn't work, orchestrate a civil war. People can't build when they're too busy trying to survive. You'd make sure their education system produces workers, not innovators. Teach them history that glorifies their oppressors. Make them think their cultures are primitive. Their ancestors were savages. Their future depends on foreign approval. Train them to memorize, not to think critically. Keep their best and brightest looking overseas for opportunities. Make them dream of escaping Africa rather than fixing it. Offer scholarships that take their top minds to the West and never encourage them to return. Let the continent keep training doctors and engineers only for them to go enrich other nations. You'd control their narratives. Own their media, control their stories, dictate their image to the world. Make them believe they are corrupt, hopeless, eternally in crisis. Flood their screens with poverty porn and war zones. Show them charity ads that make them believe they are helpless without foreign aid. Downplay their successes. Twist their victories into isolated incidents. If an African country develops a groundbreaking innovation, credit a foreign investor. If an African leader implements a successful policy, frame it as an anomaly rather than proof of competence. You'd make sure they remain dependent. Drown them in debt. Offer loans with impossible conditions. Force them to privatize everything so foreign corporations own their water, their electricity, their land. When they struggle, give them just enough aid to keep them alive, but never enough to make them self-sufficient. Use charities to create a culture of reliance rather than resilience. Make them think foreign intervention is necessary, that they can't solve their own problems, that they always need help from the outside. You'd suppress their military strength. Keep their armies weak, their defense industries non-existent. Sell them weapons to fight each other, but never let them develop high-tech military technology. If a country tries to build a strong defense system, accuse them of being a threat to stability. Make sure they always need foreign peacekeepers, foreign military bases, foreign advisors controlling their security. Keep them vulnerable to invasion, coups, and foreign interference. The formula is simple. Divide, corrupt, exploit, miseducate, control. Keep them fighting each other. Keep them looking outside for solutions. Keep them poor, dependent, insecure. Make sure every attempt to break free is met with resistance so strong that the next generation thinks twice before trying again. This isn't a theory. It's history. The real question isn't how to stop Africa from becoming a superpower. It's how Africa can break the cycle despite every effort to keep it down.
Okay. All right. Well, it looked like she said it all. So let's go to our brother Sekou. That I don't know if that's the first time you heard that, but let's see how we can unpack that and really bring that to light so we can have a good understanding. Because if you remember doing several shows, I always talked about, hey, the European people is not going to sit back and let them take back their resources, their sovereignty, and things of that nature. All right. Yeah, they're never going to do that peacefully. So you might see a few little ripples going on, a little pushback, some people stoking instability and things of that nature. You may see that. So this is what we need to prepare ourselves on. My brother Sekou, yes.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm holding up this book for some reason. I don't know if it's clear to the
we can see it.
The title is White Malice by Susan Williams. So this book, everything that the person is saying in the video, it's summarized in this book, written by a white lady, but who has been able to declassify some CIA documents and some other spy agencies around the world. How Africa was infiltrated from Kwame Nkrumah's days. Kwame Nkrumah organized a conference at the dawn of African independence. He invited civil rights leaders from America, from all around the world, to have a conference, One Africa Conference. And the purpose of that conference is to organize the vision for the United States of Africa, and also how to globalize the struggle of Black people in America. What the CIA and other spy agencies around the world, they sent in spies to infiltrate that meeting. And some people came as interpreters, some even Black people were sent there as interpreters, because many African countries, some speak English, some speak French, so there is the communication problem. So even Lumumba was at this meeting. So they came there purposely to infiltrate the meeting and know what Africa was planning ahead so they can disrupt it. And what was their own plan? Their plan was to disrupt sovereignty, because everything this person said in the video, it boils down to one thing: sovereignty. Are you free to build your own economy? Are you free to build your own army? Are you free to develop by yourself? Because the difference, people make a mistake. They think the difference between Western countries and countries in what they call global South or African country, they think is developed nation versus third world country. That's the term they use in the media and in politics. Third world countries and the first world country. Well, that word was used after World War II. It was created by Americans, economists. The idea was first world countries were countries, Western countries that have democracy, that have capitalist country, that have all these development, so-called. And the second world country were the Soviet Union and other countries. Then the third world country were countries that were controlled by both Soviet Union and the capitalist countries of the West. But here is the reality. There is no third world countries and there is no first world country. What we have is sovereign nations and nations without sovereignty. Countries with sovereignty are countries that have the ability to produce, that have the ability to industrialize, that have the ability to keep other military off their countries. Those sovereign countries are the countries that have been able to develop. Western countries. You see, China, the day China was able to keep Western power out, they became a sovereign nation, hence they developed. Japan did the same thing. Japan showcased their power in World War II, that they are not a country to mess with. And so the Western nation knew that Japan kept our Christianity. Japan kept our Western power. Japan eventually became a sovereign country and evolved. African countries have been prevented from being sovereign nations. That's the question we are having. It's not an issue of development or not developed or third world country. It's sovereignty. And sovereignty is what Pan-Africanism has been fighting for. It's what Kwame Nkrumah has been fighting for the United States of Africa. Because he said, if we are not sovereign a nation, if we don't fight for sovereignty, we will not be able to do anything for ourselves. Because your education belongs to your enemy. It influences your education. They influence your economic system. They infiltrate your army. They control the opposition party in your country. They can create rebellion. They can destroy your economy and currency. So you can't really do anything. It's like being a father of a family. Just imagine yourself being a father in a house. And another man comes into your house with arms, with guns, and he said, look, you are the dad of the house, but anything you're going to do here, I will be able to direct you. I have to direct you. Right there, you lose your power as the man of the house. Because someone is having arm standing over your head and telling your family what to do. You are not in charge. Even if you pretend to be, you are not. So the real struggle you have is not how to control your family. The real struggle you have is how to get the enemy out of the house. So you can't be under the influence of another man. Then you say, oh, my wife is not listening to me. My kids are misbehaving. No, get the enemy out first. If that person is out and you are now back as the father of the house, then you can now say, hey, my wife, can we sit down and have a talk? Because now order has returned. Now sovereignty has returned. This is the issue Africa has been facing. So there are leaders on the continent who are trying to ignore the fact that we don't have sovereignty. And they are like, oh, let's do development. Oh, let's build roads, build electricity. No, we are not sovereign. And you can tell that we are not sovereign by the event that happened recently between the leaders of Burkina Faso and our brother, Michael Langley, who happened to be the head of the AFRICOM issue, which I'm going to explain here. So General Michael Langley is an African-American, but appointed by Donald Trump to be the head of AFRICOM. AFRICOM is an American security network that is in charge of Africa. So it's set up as a spy agency that works with African governments and spy over African countries to know what they are doing. You ask me why? I have no answer. It's imperialism, period. So Michael Langley is appointed, and he goes for a hearing before Congress, and he tells Congress that there is a problem in Burkina Faso, And the problem in Burkina Faso is that the leader, Captain Ibrahim Traore, is using the gold of Burkina Faso to protect himself. I want you to really listen to what this brother is saying. The president of Burkina Faso is using the gold of Burkina Faso to protect himself. Now you ask yourself, is Burkina Faso a sovereign nation? Do they have the right to use their gold the way they want? No, the AFRICOM is telling the American Congress, Burkina Faso does not have a right to use their gold the way they want. That's what Brother Michael Lanley is trying to say. It's like China having a meeting and saying that Donald Trump is using the taxpayer money of America to pay the secret services to protect him. Therefore, it's wrong. Will it sound good in the ears of anybody? But they are trying to tell you that Burkina Faso is not a sovereign country. But Ibrahim Traore is trying to make them a sovereign nation. Therefore, it's a problem. Who is questioning America for how they use their resources to protect their president? Who is questioning America? But Michael Lanley is telling the American Congress, and in extension, the entire American public opinion, that Burkina Faso is doing something wrong. They are using their gold to protect their president. That statement is the same statement that was used to remove Gaddafi. Gaddafi is using the natural resources of his country to protect himself. Saddam Hussein is using his natural resources to they use the same old playbook to destabilize other people's country. But the reality of the ground, what happened in Burkina Faso? Burkina Faso is experiencing terrorist attack. Since Libya was destabilized by NATO, there is an entire Sahel, because when we talk about Burkina Faso, let me give you a geographical kind of understanding. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, these are West African countries. But West African countries that border the Sahara. And the Sahara is the demarcation between North Africa and West Africa. And these countries share border with North African countries through the Sahara Desert. And Libya was one of them. So since the fall of Libya, the entire Sahel or Sahara region has become a breeding ground for terrorists. I think I kind of like frozen. So the terrorists are coming to attack this country, trying to destabilize them. And these countries were having democracy. They were having elected president at the time. So they invited France to come and help protect them. Because this is what tells you that they were not a sovereign nation. They had to call France to come and help them. So guess what the French army did? They built bases in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and in Niger. And they tell the soldiers of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso that you cannot travel to a certain part of your country anymore because we are in charge now. We are fighting the terrorists, so your army have to just stay in the cities. There are certain part of your country where the golds are mined, where the diamonds are mined. Don't go there. We are in charge. So they created a buffer zone between the army of these countries and the so-called terrorists. But then something strange was happening. The terrorists were not going away. These French army were not fighting the terrorists. They were having meetings with them. And at the same time, they were having meetings with the army. They just created a buffer zone in the country where the golds and the mines and everything are, and they were in charge. So the military said, wait a minute, what is going on? It seems our country has been sold to two kinds of devil. One, the terrorists that we are fighting, and these people we call our friends who have come to defend us, and they have created a buffer zone between us and the terrorists, and the buffer zone is where we have our natural resources. And if you listen to me some time ago, I tell you that America's biggest drone base is in Niger. Biggest drone base in the world that America has is in Niger. And they were not able to fight the terrorists with all the drones they had there. So surveillance from these armies showed that their intelligence reports showed to them that America and France were actually supplying these terrorists low-key because they benefit from the conflict. Why does conflict go on between the terrorists and the army? They come as peacekeepers. Now, as peacekeepers, they become the authority in the country indirectly. So they tell the army of the country, don't do anything. We will mine your gold and diamond, and we will be able to tell the terrorists not to attack you, and we will be in charge. It was a second colonialism. This is what we call neo-colonialism. That's why the army decided to stage the coup d'etat. They find out that their so-called democratic elected president were puppets. So they removed them. This is the so-called coup that you are hearing about. It's actually a revolution. So when these guys took over, let's deal with Burkina Faso specifically. An army general took over who called Damiba. Damiba was given a mission to restore the army into the country and remove the French and be able to put the Burkinabe army on the war front to confront these terrorists and remove them from the country. But when this general took over, he was invited to Paris. He went to Paris and had dinner with Macron. And when he came back, he said, no, we are not going to remove the French army. We are going to negotiate with them and they are going to help us. So if Captain Ibrahim Traoré was at the war front. He was leading a battalion. He was a fighter. And he saw the reality on the war front. He saw the French taking the gold out of their country. And they were not fighting the terror. And the general who they put in power to help them to fix the problem, he became a puppet as well. So they staged a second coup and removed that general and put the young captain into power. When the young captain took over, he said, this is not a democracy, this is a revolution. We are at war with terrorists who are about to take our country. And the people we invited in our country to help out the French became sabotage. They were sabotaging our economy, sabotaging our security system. So therefore, we are going to do a reset. And first thing we're going to do, we want all the French out. Leave our country. Americans, leave our country. He got them out and he signed a deal with the Russians. He said to the Russians, I just need ammunition. I don't need help. Just sell the technology to me. We will fight the terrorists directly. So he bought arms and drones from many countries, China, Russia, and Turkey. And the boys started fighting effectively. He kicked out the terrorists to the border. That's the first thing he did. The second thing he did, he said, we are going to create a gold reserve for our country. We cannot be producing gold and the gold is taken out raw out of the ground and taken to the West. We will create a gold reserve, and in the future, we are going to create a currency that will be backed by the gold, the vision of Muammar Gaddafi. So they saw this guy for the first time in their history of Burkina Faso. The boys started keeping what we call a reserve gold. They were mining the gold and reserving the gold. And the Western countries said, no, we can see this happening. This boy is setting a dangerous precedent. He's trying to store up gold for their country. This is going to make Burkina Faso economically powerful and sovereign. The second thing the boys did, he started doing infrastructural development. Within 2 years of his presidency, he has built more than 3 factories. Because he said, we got to produce what we eat. We got to produce what we wear. We can't depend on people. He produced tomato factory. He produced a factory that produced electric cars. He produced factories that refines their gold. Now he's having a deal with Russia to build a nuclear power plant in his country. They were like, oh no, this boy is going too fast. He's revolutionizing the country, and we have to call him a dictator. General Langley now goes to America to report that the boy is using the gold to protect himself. Why the boy is having a reserve for gold for the first time in the history of their country. So now I'm asking you, we have leaders in Africa who have been in power for 40 years, like the president of Cameroon, who is a French puppet. They never report against them. We have presidents in Africa who have been in power forever, for 30 years, like the president of Uganda, Museveni. But they will never talk because those people are British puppets. But the man who has just been in power for 2 years is now fighting terrorists against his country. He has become a problem to you. Suddenly he's a threat to you. That tells you that any African leader who advocates for sovereignty is a threat to the West. Any African leader who advocates for the real independence of African country, that leader becomes a threat to Western nation. That is the truth. That is the debate they don't want us to have. That is the true discussion. Sovereignty is what they don't want us to have. Right now, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has restored an institution called the Institution for Black People. This was an institution that was created by Thomas Sankara. The purpose of that institution was to bring global African people together to discuss our problems and see how we can have the same political philosophy. And people try to ask, so how is that possible? Well, Donald Trump just demonstrated how the European white people protect themselves. He invited the president of South Africa to come and explain to him why he's treating the white people bad. He invited the president of South Africa to come and tell him that there is a genocide against white people in South Africa. Now, when genocide is committed against Black people in America, who invites them to ask them questions? Who speaks to them? Who questions them? When the police indiscriminately shoot Black Americans on the street for just driving white Black, for driving a good car white Black, who questioned them? What organization in the world is reporting American government to the UN, to the World Criminal Court for killing Black people? The boy said, we have to revive that organization, the Institution for Black People, to speak on behalf of Black people in the world. They said, no. They said, that's why he said, Brother Michael Langley does not represent the consciousness of Black American people. Because when you listen to Brother Muhammad Ali in the 80s, 70s, when they told him he has to go to Vietnam to fight, he said, my enemy is not in Vietnam. My enemy is white supremacy in America. The people in Vietnam do not call me nigger. They don't call me N-word. It is the white Americans. So why should I go and fight a war for the country that does not even respect my identity? So now they've used a Black man to head the AFRICOM to destabilize these Sahel countries. So we don't see it as a white supremacy project. We should see it as a project done by international community. Because when you say anything, they say, well, the head of AFRICOM is a Black man, so he wasn't racist towards Black people. The truth is, just because the person's skin is black does not mean they stand for Black liberation. Just because a person's skin is black does not mean they have Black consciousness. Just because someone is from Africa, that's why I tell people who say, oh, well, there are Africans who love Black men. Not because someone's skin is black. Well, I kind of froze there a little bit. So not because someone's skin is black, not because someone comes from Africa, you expect him to be Pan-African. Don't ever think because you have a person from Africa, so automatically they should love all Black people. No, there are so many sellouts among us. There are so many who have sold out throughout history against the interest, the collective interest of Black people. And that's what Brother Michael Langley represents. And we do not see him representing the Black American. We see him representing the government of the United States, which is a white supremacy government.
Wow. You know what? It's a couple things that I want to put out and put on our brain in reference to, a few things you said, that because sometimes we can look at, Russia and China's involvement with Africa, and we make it say, hey, are we going through the same thing and things of that nature? Let's step back and look for 1 second. America supposedly, they say, between 7 something to 800 army bases around the world. What does that tell you? China and Russia have no bases in nobody else's country. You know what I'm saying? Never colonized any other country, that we know in modern times history that they did. What does that tell you about the people that you are dealing with? This same game that you've been talking about that we heard on the video has been played out over and over again, and I think this conversation is especially important because, again, and what I said at the top of the show, we always look to Africa and have the big question mark on why they can't get themselves together. We have to understand that this is a special agenda that is going on to keep Africa the way they are right now. Just like you talked about corrupt people, they go make sure they go and seek out the right individual, the place in the right position to keep the same situation and the politics going on for their best interest, and therefore the people starving. Now, this is what we need to look at is thinking. Who wants to be independent or who wants to be dependent on anyone? Why is it a big deal for someone to want to be able to take care of themselves, from which you got problems with somebody being able to take care of themselves, feed their babies, and so that's an issue. And you got people and corporations saying that they don't care. They don't care anybody, rather than working with someone and everybody, get fair deals and prosper from this. No. Our European folks say, no, we want to keep you underfoot. We want to be able to get all your resources for pennies on the dollar for us, for us to prosper and benefit from those resources. The point I'm making is that who are we dealing with? What kind of individuals are we dealing with to have issues like that? And we can go right here in America. What kind of individuals are we dealing with where I don't gave up my life, I don't fought in every conflict that you had, came out victorious, kicked behind, saved your behind. All black regiments went in Germany and took over 30-some cities, but still come back to this country and can't even buy a house, won't even give no land. I'm saying, people, let's wake up and see what we're doing. Because if we really understood how we are cohabiting and who we are cohabiting with, you would have a different approach on how you look at things. Anything given into you, you should be questioning. And that's okay. I think this is a good plug for my t-shirt again. Anti-establishment. That's why I say everything that we have learned and dealt with in this country needs to be questioned. We need to look at it with a serious, critical eye to see exactly how we are wrapped up into this little social game right here to keep us mentally and consciously at foot and working in the best interest of someone else. It's nothing but the same game, same soup warmed over. So brother Sekou, as far as support is concerned, where do you think we going with this, man? And how? Because I'm hearing even some white people giving him support. They had a little rally, I think around April 30th, with different people in different countries that were, coming together and standing up, even in Jamaica. Hey, we need to protect this guy, things like that. Over 20-some coups. This is how serious this is, y'all, to where people saying, we don't want you to take care of yourself. We want to keep you dependent, and we want to be able to steal your goods. I mean, we got to realize exactly what's going on. What's your thoughts, Brother Sekou?
Yes. They've been doing this for centuries, and they've been doing this neo-colonial project, which Kwame Nkrumah warns us about. He warned Africans that if we do not unite to create a powerful superpower Black African state, there are two things going to happen. One, there will be an attempt to recolonize Africa, because the power of nations, the struggle between nation and civilization, is control of resources. It is the purpose of all wars in nations, control over resources and land. And Africa have that in abundance. And you cannot have something that is coveted after in abundance and you don't have security. Your house will be surrounded by thieves, by criminals, by rapists, by gangs. So you need to be foresighted about security, about protecting yourself. And the best way to protect ourselves is African integration and create a superpower state that has nuclear capabilities. That will be the best revenge we can ever give to our ancestors for 500 years for the humiliation they went through. But unfortunately, many people did not listen. And what Kwame Nkrumah prophecy is now coming to pass. What is going on is the attempt to recolonize Africa, but in a different way this time. In a way, they want to use black faces as frontline of what they use in slavery, to use sellouts among or collaborators among black people to be able to control their market. But they are the ones who are the greatest beneficiaries. So what has happened is to remove, they see this young captain to be two revolutionaries, because there was another revolutionary before him, which was Thomas Sankara, which they killed. So they wanted to repeat the same thing, because what they do is that they gave a dog a bad name before they kill it. So the attempt of Brother Michael Langley was to give a bad name to Captain Traore and make the media to take the information that he's a bad dictator, he's using the gold for himself. Then one morning we wake up, they're going to kill him. Then we will say, oh, well, he was a dictator, he deserved it. So that was the plan. But the plan backfired, because this generation appears to be different and they've learned from their mistake. As soon as he made that video, the entire internet went crazy. Black people from all over the world, it was like the ancestors spoke to us. In the Caribbean, in USA, all over the continent, for the first time in 50 years, we've never seen African youth unite on one cause. For the first time, even the Europeans were shocked. Every platform from Nigeria all the way down to South Africa, everybody was making videos and said, don't touch this captain. Don't try. In fact, there were young people on the street and said, Captain, open your border and your army. We want to come in. We Pan-African youth, we want you to recruit us. If America steps its foot in Burkina Faso, open your military and every African youth on the continent will enroll. We are prepared to die to protect this continent this time.
Wow.
Nothing should happen to Captain Ibrahim Traore, otherwise hell will break loose. There were demonstrations everywhere. There was advocacy everywhere. They were shocked. In fact, the night Brother Michael Langley, or let me not call him brother, Mr. Michael Langley was making this allegation against the president of Burkina Faso, there was already commandos that were sent in to assassinate the president that night. They were sent, from Cote d'Ivoire, these commandos were sent in, special forces. They were sent in to assassinate the president. All those special forces were captured and arrested, both by the army and the citizen. Every citizen in the country became an informant for the government. They said, it's not happening this time. We will not allow you to kill our heroes and destroy our destiny. So everywhere we saw something new, African people came together to protect a president. So Ibrahim Traore became a celebrity president, a young prince of Africa, who Russia saw the unity so much, even Russia started to align with him so that it cannot boost their international PR. Because when they had their Victory Day celebration, they invited the captain. They sent 4 warplanes to guide his presidential jet to take him to Moscow. because the NATO could shoot his plane from the sky. So Russia sent 4 warplanes to guide his plane to take him to Moscow and brought him back again safely. This was a sign that Africans were not willing to sell their leaders this time. They were willing to protect a Pan-African leader who is actually doing the job. When the boy went to Moscow, he made a speech to Vladimir Putin. And this is a speech we have been expecting from African leaders. They never make such speech. He said, I'm not here to beg you for resources because we have it in abundance. I'm not here to beg you to give us rice, to give us handout. We don't need any of that. The cooperation we need with you is to share technology. We want our youth to be scientific and technologically inclined and produce for our country. So we want knowledge. We want your universities to be collaborating with our university to share technology and knowledge. That's what we need. We need ammunitions. We need factories to build, to produce for ourselves. That's the cooperation that we need from you. We don't want any country giving us rice and clothes and oil. We see you as enemy because you are trying to make us dependent on you. This mindset is what the Western world do not want to hear. That's what the African leader can never say when they are sitting with the US president. Because all the trade agreements by the Western world towards African country was to make them not to industrialize. They do not want African country to industrialize. They want you to produce raw materials for the factories of the West to process. So you have produced cocoa beans and coffee beans, and we made the chocolate and we made the coffee. I was in my office one day and I have people who drink. Most of the people in my office, they love drinking coffee during the break time. Everybody loves coffee and everybody loves chocolate. So I asked them, have you guys ever seen a cocoa bean before? What chocolate is made of? They're like, no. They don't even know what that is. So the people in the West enjoy chocolate, enjoy coffee, but they've never even seen the cocoa bean. They've never seen the coffee bean that actually make these things. But get into West Africa, in Ivory Coast, every corner you turn is a cocoa bean. In the villages, people have it in abundance. But if you ask those people to hold a chocolate bar with them and say, do you know what this is? They will ask you, we don't know what this is. But it is the same cocoa bean they are holding in their hand. That's the finished product. But they don't know. That is the criminality of the Western world that they want us to, the type of criminality they want to perpetuate. Their trade deficit they want to perpetuate. It's criminality.
Right, right.
Why they say that we that produce the cocoa bean, we should be the producer of chocolate. We should be the producer of coffee. But they said, no. How can we produce uranium that produces electricity and nuclear bomb, but we are not allowed to have nuclear facility. We are not allowed to make nuclear bomb. We are not allowed to have nuclear power plant to make electricity, but we can give you uranium, which is coming from our soil. This needs to stop. That's why yesterday I told someone who was having a podcast and saying, well, we don't want military leadership, we want democracy. I said, democracy does not equal development. And there is no democracy in the West. They use these terminologies just to confuse you. Every nation needs sovereignty. Once you are sovereign and you are in control of your economy, you are in control of your army and your resources, you can determine what type of government you want. But you can be in America and say, I want you to have democracy now. That's hypocrisy. Why? When France was at war with Hitler, guess who was their leader? General de Gaulle. The military took over in France to defend France. But they don't call those dictators, they call them national heroes. General Charles de Gaulle was the leader of France during World War II, but they praise him today in France as a national hero. The leader of Ukraine, Right now, he suspended all political parties in his country. There's no election, there's no democracy, no election, but they call him hero. But if he was an African leader, they would call him dictator. This is the double standard of Western ideology that Africans need to be exposed to. When the West talk of human right, they don't really mean it that way. They mean white right.
Hey, brother Sekou. Oh yeah, brother Vince. I know you've been waiting patiently there. I want to get you in a little bit on live to see if we can go a little bit on our YouTube channel as well. But go ahead.
Well, first I need to ask Brother Sekou if he's available for another half hour or so. If not, then I'm going to reserve my questions because they would require answers that will take more than just a moment or two to answer. Right. So, Sekou, are you able to join us for another half hour or so, or do you need to go?
Yeah, I can stay for another 20 minutes.
Another 20 minutes?
20 minutes.
Okay. Yes. All right. I'll keep that in mind. Quickly, I just wanted to point out the irony of the South African president coming to the United States at the same time that folks are being exiled from South Africa because their land is being unjustly taken away from them from their perspective. But they seem to forget that they took the land and it didn't belong to them in the first place. So to me, that's just like unmitigated gall. I think it's like an example that you talked about earlier, you know, somebody coming into your house and basically taking over your house. And I can't help forget that that scene from the movie Till, where they came to this man's house and he had a gun and he didn't protect himself. You know, when somebody comes up into your house, you have a right to protect yourself. They can't just come in. But this is what we did. We let them come in and take our resources. So, you know, you got these white South Africans coming to the United States, you know, like they're refugees of some sort. The other thing that I wanted to ask about, and perhaps we can get into this, is the recent discovery of gold in Uganda. And you mentioned the leadership of Uganda and how long they have been there. And if you have all those resources, then perhaps it's time to start thinking about reversing this colonialism that has impacted that country for such a long period of time. So hopefully we can get into those topics in the few moments that we have left. I just want to remind the listeners that you're listening to 360 Info Network right here on AM 1490 WERE. Our guest is Sekou Kelleh. He is a cultural activist for African Renaissance, and he's going to stay with us for just a few more moments. We are on YouTube right now, so if you're listening by radio and you want to continue to enjoy this conversation, you can go to my YouTube channel. You can also go to The Journey with Hamtonio and view it from there. I highly encourage you to subscribe to these channels because it would help us out tremendously if you would do that. And of course, you can always access this program on our Facebook page, which is 360 Info Network. Brother Hamtonio, I know you want to let folks know about this ball that you have coming up. So if you could drop that on us.
Yes, the Juneteenth ball, last Sunday in June at the Mediterranean Party Center. Let's come on out and support. We need some brothers to come on out with the sisters and let's have a good time. You can give me a call, 216-323-6155 for tickets. Want to see you in the place.
All righty. And if I could squeeze in a real quick commercial, we are going to be having some live jazz at Larchmere Arts on next Friday. That's the 30th. It'll start at 7 o'clock, and you can come in and get in on that. And also coming up on the 7th of June, it's going to be percussion and poetry with Brother Elijah Gilmore. We're going to have an open mic set. Well, maybe I'll find a feature between now and then, so you have another reason to come in. But we're going to be doing a lot of big things at Larchmere Arts this summer, including the first ever Larchmere Cultural Arts Festival. We have a plethora of artists that are going to be participating in that. Sister Queen is going to have an African drumming class at Kings and Queens Cultural Village. We're also going to have exhibitions at Unbar and at Dune Spice, and we're going to involve Literary Cleveland in that effort. So stay tuned for that. Save the date, July 11th through the 13th at Larchmere Arts. Also want to give a big ups to the third man involved in this program, is Brother Tone Harley. He keeps us together, he keeps us on the air and makes this podcast possible. So thank you to him for joining us. And as always, we have to thank the most important folks, those of you who are listening on radio. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your absolute best day. Peace, y'all.
Peace.
All right. We are live exclusively on YouTube and Facebook with Brother Sekou Kelleh. I'm telling you, he is a wealth of information about what's going on the continent. And, kudos to you for staying plugged in and keeping us informed. You know, it's funny. People who were listening during the radio hour did not know that the voice that they were listening to was an artificial intelligence voice, and the script was artificial intelligence, but it was completely on point. And then Brother Sekou comes in and he holds up the book that was the source of the information, because what AI does is it pulls information from published sources and then it incorporates that into the information that is disseminated. But the thing about it is, it's giving you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's telling you what's really going on. And so I challenge folks, because I have been using artificial intelligence myself lately, Chat GPT and a few other things, and it's just amazing what it's capable of. But the very fact that it can tell you exactly what the strategy was, how it's been carried out, but it also can offer you strategies that you can use to push back on what's going on. So, Brother Sekou, I wanted to ask you about the relationship between Burkina Faso and Ghana. I know that the president of Ghana did allow the president of Burkina Faso to come to his inauguration. And there was this kind of nuanced, bro, we want you to step up. And I'm saying Traore to Mahama, step up and be the elder who understands how important this moment is and how we can reverse things. Let's just take back our sovereignty. I'm so glad that you used that word, because sovereignty, the ability to govern yourself, is the most important thing that these countries can engage in right now. And just the idea of all these nations coming together, just like you have the United States of America, you have the United States of Africa, and all these countries come together and say, hey, we're going to combine our military force. We're going to combine our resources. We're going to take back our continent from the domination of the European powers that have invoked their will for so long. So I'm just wondering, do you see any traction in the relationship between Ghana and Burkina Faso, and perhaps Ghana being one of those highly developing nations right now, that they could take sovereignty into account and then perhaps change the paradigm on the continent and have other African nations follow?
Yes. Unfortunately, I am, like people used to say, there are people who are Afro optimists and there are those who are skeptics. And I don't know, what's the term for the other. There are different groups of people in terms of what Africa's future looks like. And I tell people, I'm not a pessimist, but I am realist when it comes to African future. I believe in the reality of what is happening, and I'm not just going to be an optimist or pessimist. So as a realist, I can tell you that many African nations are not sovereign, including Ghana. Ghana is not a sovereign state. It has the I don't know how to say it. There is the consciousness of sovereignty in Ghana based on the legacy of Kwame Nkrumah. So the consciousness for sovereignty is well and alive in Ghana, but it has not been practical and has not been implemented. The last government of Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana that initiated the Year of Return was the anti-Nkrumah party. They were anti-Kwame Nkrumah, but they always knew that Kwame Nkrumah is highly regarded in the Pan-African world. So they always kind of try to portray themselves that they are not anti-Kwame Nkrumah. But in reality, on the ground, they try to get rid of his project because Kwame Nkrumah made some major project in Ghana that would have led to their economic sovereignty. He established a power plant dam that would have given them electricity to supply the country. He established factories that were supposed to help to produce everything they need, from books up to the clothes they wear. Most of the factories were killed, and they were Western capitalists were allowed to sell goods into Ghana and then kill those factories to stop producing through this leadership. The man who is in power now, Dramani Mahama, is a pro-Nkrumah party. So we know the differences. So he is a pro-Nkrumah. So you're going to see he's not totally going to lead Ghana into sovereignty, but his posture and his body language will be always pro-Pan-African. So what he did, the last president, Kufuor, you could see he went to the United States to go and report Burkina Faso. He said Burkina Faso is trying to destabilize Ghana. He's trying to create, he was definitely on the Western side. But you see the new president, Mahama, he goes straight and invite the captain and say, how do we supply your country? Because Burkina Faso is a landlocked country. So he said, we're going to give you access to our port to get things you want. We're going to have trade routes. We're going to establish roads and highways between our country and train tracks to be able to supply you, and you supply us too with your tomatoes and your agricultural products. And we're going to supply you with oil and gas and the other things that you need. He's establishing relationship with the captain. So he's a Pan-African. He has that Pan-African posture. And we are likely to see Ghana not going to be a base to destabilize Burkina Faso. That's not going to happen. So he's not going to allow that, especially he is in his last term as president. He's not looking for re-election. And usually when African leaders are looking for re-election, they become puppet to the West because they know elections are not free and fair. It's going to be Western power rigging for them. So he's not looking for that. So he's likely going to be in favor of Burkina Faso president. He's going to be a very good big brother. So I'm positive about that. The real threat is Ivory Coast.
Yeah.
President Ouattara. Ouattara is a puppet president. He was installed by France. He's a member of, he has a big title in Freemasonry now. He's one of the Grandmaster title he got. And he worked with the World Bank, IMF, these institutions that are destabilizing African economy. So they gave him massive loans. What they do is that they gave him massive loans, and they don't give those loans to other African countries. So they gave him these loans. He became very rich. He built some bridges and roads in his capital city, and people think he's a president who is doing development, but in reality, he's not building factories, which are the real development that people need. Industrialization. So he's doing fake development in Africa. The fake development is build roads, post electricity, build one skyscraper in the middle of the city, and people say, wow, this African city look like Paris. That's not development, that's a joke. The development we need is sovereignty, build factories, self-sufficiency, food security, medical facility. We produce our own vaccine. We are able to manufacture our own medicine, things that are self-sustaining, things that restore our dignity, that make us not to be dependent on the West. Those are the things they don't want to do. But they want to build a nice hotel, nice beach side. They put a photo up. Oh, Africa, look at this beach. Oh my God. That's not what we need. Africa is a natural, beautiful paradise. We don't need all those type of photo up. We need real development, factories, industries, technology, science, institutions that will make us independent, not to be dependent on the West. Because when you say you have all these factories, all these beautiful beaches and hotels, all that is required to destroy your economy is a stroke of a pen. All the Western world needs to do is say sanction, and then everything collapses. So that's not independence.
Good point.
When they
Yes.
tried to sanction Russia, what happened? Russia went inward. They used their factories to defend themselves. They started producing things they need. If you remove McDonald's, they replace it with another company. If you remove all of these Facebook, you remove TikTok, you remove YouTube, they replace them with their own. That's what you call independence. They were not able to sabotage Russia's economy. They tried to do a tariff war with China. China said, we don't give a F. Go ahead and put the tariffs on. We will fight you. They did it and they didn't succeed. China is the largest manufacturer in the world. Africa, that's what we need. We don't need all these hotels and make beaches, make this. Because for Africans, that's what development is. For Africans who don't think deeply. They think development is to put few lights on the street and make a beautiful bridge and say, oh, look at this bridge. It looks like a bridge in London. Oh, look at this bridge in Abidjan. It looks like. So this type of copy and paste is not what we need. We need sovereignty. We need to develop into our own factories, local industries, and produce for ourselves. So that's what Ouattara represents. He represents the fake development. He represented superficial development by a massive IMF loan, which is going to cripple his country in some decades to come. And they are using his country as a base to destabilize Burkina Faso. Right now, as we speak, the French have a base, the Americans are establishing an intelligence base in his country. All is to remove this young prince of Pan-Africanism who is trying to inspire the youth of Africa and say, this is how it's done. For them, Traoré represents a threat, not because he's going to send some type of nuclear bomb and bomb American or European cities. No, because he's waking up the consciousness of the youth of Africa, and that's what they don't want. They don't want. They want us to be sleepy. They want us to be dreamy. That if the white people don't rescue us, we can be rescued. And this young prince of Pan-Africanism is saying, "I don't need loan." They threatened him. They said, "We're not going to give you loan." He said, "No, I don't need loan. We got gold. We got everything here. We don't need your loan. In fact, I'm going to pay back what we owe." He started paying some of that, and he's doing massive projects. They said, "Well, we are not going to send engineers to build your roads." He said, "No, I don't need them." He recruited university students, engineers in his country, and he brought in this machine and said, "Learn how to operate this machine, and we build our roads by ourselves." Why do we need Chinese and Europeans to build our roads? Why do we go to university to study engineering? What's the purpose? If we can build our roads, then we should close the universities down. Because what's the purpose of having people coming out with PhD and they come on television to speak a lot of French and English, but they can't build roads? We don't need such engineers. We need engineers who can practice their profession and build roads by ourselves. So they said, well, this boy is dangerous. He's going to make many African countries will start imitating him. Many African youth will start seeing him as an example, and they will now be independent. The independence of Africa means the stagnation of Europe. It means economic problem for the Western world. That's the reality they don't want to say. Let's go to Uganda. Uganda, we are seeing on social media. I'm yet to verify this information, by the way, because for me, I don't really follow the things that your papa, I go to verify the information. So I'm yet to verify if the news we are hearing that Uganda has discovered a gold reserve that is worth 12 trillion US dollars. I will find out if it is true. If it is true, I will come back on this platform and we'll talk about it. But I'm yet to verify if it is true. But here's the problem. Even if such resources discovered, if the paradigm, the current paradigm that is ruling Uganda and Africa does not change, their goal will not benefit them.
Yeah, well, you said, yeah.
Because as we speak right now, Nigeria has more oil than Qatar. Nigeria is more richer than Dubai in terms of oil. But what's happening in Nigeria? Why is everybody not running there as they're running to Dubai? Because there is a paradigm which has not changed. So it is irrelevant to discuss. Africa is rich than even they tell you. Congo is the richest nation on the planet. What is happening in Congo? They can't even have a government. So the discovery is irrelevant. I think the real resources of Africa is the brain of the people, the mind of the people, and the culture of our people. is the real resources that we should invest in. When we invest in that resources and those minds, those brains are conscious, the resources now will be used properly. But if you open up the gate of Uganda right now, you're going to have coup d'etat happen in Uganda. You start hearing about civil war in Uganda. You start hearing about diseases in Uganda. All of those are mechanisms they're going to use for them to go in and start exploiting. So the goal will not benefit Uganda people. It's the paradigm that needs to change. Sovereignty, economic sovereignty, Pan-Africanism and economic sovereignty. If we don't have that, we will not be able to produce for ourselves, and we won't be able to benefit from our natural resources. All African countries are rich. Each and every one of them have resources that could make them the best countries in the world. As I speak to you, they have them. It's not the lack of resources, it's the lack of the leadership that will tell the West, Africa will no longer be used as a pound of flesh. We want to produce it for ourselves. That's all we are looking for. Shut the gate, shut down what we call kind of excommunicate Europeans from Africa and say, Africa is shutting the gate. We want to go inward. Chinese did that. They shut the gate with trade. They said, we don't want no trade with the West. We have to face our eternal problem. Then after that, we will open the gate. Because there's a lot of mess. We can open the gate while we're having this mess. And let me tell you why Europeans love democracy in Africa. Democracy is a system of government that is fragile. You allow opposition that they can control, that they can finance to destabilize. That's why they love it so much. Because when you have a sovereign state, which is having a military leadership like Burkina Faso, there is no window for them to penetrate. So they don't like that. They love where there is a lot of political parties, people are yelling on the street, then they start recruiting people and say, hey, we can give you a $1 million in your political party and you destabilize the government. Well, you can't do that in a military leadership. So that's why they hate the captain and the leadership we have in the Sahel. So the debate remains the same for African people. Do you want sovereignty? Do you want freedom? Or you want to continue? And that's why Pan-Africanism remains relevant until this day. We, the generation of Africa, must infuse Pan-Africanism in our political philosophy and bring back that consciousness that we must unite. We must use our resources for ourselves. We have the richest continent on the planet. We have no reason to beg. We have no reason. The Western world, they live their life on hypocrisy and lies. They are not people that we should listen to. If you listen to Trump, when he talked about the white South Africans being killed, he doesn't talk about the killing of apartheid. He doesn't talk about how the land was stolen. He doesn't talk about how just 15% of the population controlled 90% of the land. How did they acquire those land? By stealing, by destruction, by lie, by rape. And you are saying your U.S. government has a policy that the government can take any land to use it for public use. It's called expropriation of land without compensation. South Africa adopted the same law, and you are saying it's a racist law. It's the same law in America. You can take land as a government to use it for public use. Why does African government not have the right to implement such law? But they are telling you indirectly that you are not a sovereign state.
And you're not important.
That's what they are telling you. So sovereignty, 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 sovereignty is what African countries are supposed to be fighting for.
I just want to say one quick thing before you go too. And I want to put this prediction out, and I've seen a little bit out because we're still waiting to hear, but we having conflicting and some of the information is sparse about what's going on in Ivory Coast, because they're saying they may have dethroned that president there. And then I seen something of them threatening Ruto over in Kenya. And the prediction is that I see that is happening once I first heard that, is that a lot of leaders are going to be shaking in their boots at this time because of the youth pressure. Because, you know, some of them Ivorians, they were calling our brother Traore their president. And now these youth is going to put pressure on all these these leaders, they got, is in the back pocket of America, they're going to call them out. And I think that's what they're afraid of, that's going to spread too. That they're going to call these leaders out, and they say they want a man that is doing some of the same things that Brother Traore is doing. And and this thing could unite across Africa. So I think right now, a lot of these leaders are shaking in their boots and a little fearful of uprising. So I seen the military guy saying, Ruto and his cabinet, we coming from you. If you don't get yourself together, we coming at you. And I think that's going to happen across the continent there. And it's always been the youth, and that's what they're afraid of.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the youth pressure is on, and it is in Ivory Coast right now. Everybody on their platform, they present the captain as their president. That is putting pressure on all the leadership. Even in Liberia right now, the conversation is, how did the young man build factories in 2 years? Yeah. What magic, what miracle did he do? Because what the African government have been telling us is that governing is rocket science. Because they've been telling us, it's difficult to build a factory. You need the Americans to agree. The Americans you have to be in their good book. The French have to love you. They have all the machines. You need to go to Paris. You need to bend down. You need to be friends with these people. Otherwise, you can't have a factory. The captain, then we asked them, the captain chased the American and French out, and he built factories in 2 years. So you guys have been lying. You don't want to do the job. So get out the way. This is the pressure now they are experiencing. So they all hate the captain. Then they say, well, you need to take a loan. Then everybody go back again and open the Bible of the captain and say, he didn't take loan. He didn't take any loan, but he built factories. So all of you guys, you are using the playbook by IMF and the World Bank, which is a fake economic paradigm. This fake economic paradigm says that in order for you to develop, quote unquote, you need the so-called developed nation to give you handouts. But what the captain has shown us, you don't need handout. You need political will. You need patriotism. That's all you need to develop a country. Competence, patriotism. This is all you need to develop a nation. You don't need to sell your country. You don't need to sell your nation resources. You don't need to see your people in poverty. You don't need that. And what is the dignity for you as leaders when African people cannot live in decent houses? We can have clean streets, we can have hospitals, and you guys move around, walking on red carpet and wearing ties and suits and having meetings with European leaders. What dignity is there? Why don't you get decent life to your people? This is the debate. And we are saying that this entire discussion of democracy and this and that, we need to pause all of these fake arguments. The argument we're going to have now, patriotic leadership. How do we develop patriotic leadership on a continent that develop the interest, defend the interests of African people, Black people globally? We are not looking for anybody here that start telling us, Plato, democracy come from the Greeks, is this, you have to do that. We are tired of all these European playbook. We want patriotic leadership. African kings who built empires and kingdoms didn't go to universities in Oxford University or go to any type of university in Europe. All they had was patriotism and love for their people. They built empire where there was no homelessness. There was no poverty in African kingdoms. Everybody has satisfaction. There is no hunger. In fact, in Mali Empire, there was a system, it's called Sananguya. It was a system, a social system. If I travel to the Mali Empire right now, I'm a Black person, when I got there, and I go and meet the security forces and what have you, and said, I'm from this part of Africa. And they say, what is your last name? And I called my last name. I said, I'm Kuyate. They said, well, go to the part of the city. This is where people of that last name, that's where they live. And when I go there, those people want just to see me and say, my name is Sekou Kelleh. They are like, okay, what do you need? You need a farmland, you need a house, you need a place to live. That particular community is trying to attend to you immediately. They find food for you, they find place for you to live. There's nobody homeless. There There is nobody looking for food lying down on the street. The entire community is responsible for each other. So this poverty was manufactured. This poverty was artificially created. That's why we need to, the way it came in, that's how we need to drive it out. It is the European system that brought it, and it's that system we need to kick out. There was no poverty anywhere. You can't go anywhere. The Arabs, who was the first to come into African kingdoms, they did not document anybody sleeping on the street. They did not document anybody is being homeless. The community take care of each other. Everybody got land. Even as foreigners, once you live there for a period of time, they give you a farmland. You don't buy it. They just give it to you. Farm, get food out of it. The land belongs to the ancestors and the people. You don't buy it. You use it for your use, for your livelihood, and give it back. This was the system. These are people who came out of Europe and said they think they can buy people land and take it and say it belongs to them.
Yeah, the water.
Out in South Africa and say, "Oh, you taking our land." The land don't belong to you. The land is ancestral property. You can use it to farm, but then it can be used on another time for another community can use it for another purpose. You can't say it belongs to you. How can you own a land that will swallow you up in a few years to come when you die? You can't own it. You can use it temporarily, but you can't own it. It belongs to everybody. That's the mentality they don't understand. They don't understand that something can belong to everybody and everybody can benefit from it. For in their system, there has to be a hierarchy. Some people need to be dispossessed for some people to have.
Yeah.
And in our community, we all need to own something and we find a way for everybody to benefit. That is humanist philosophy that the white man does not want to hear.
Yes.
I'm going to go out on a limb in this moment and proclaim Sekou Kelleh as the Liberian Prince of Pan-Africanism. his passion reminds me of Dr. Arikana Chimbori Kwao.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his knowledge base and his information is on that level. And so I just want to commend you for bringing this consciousness to us, because that's what it is. It's consciousness. It's awareness of what's going on. You told us 20 minutes. You've given us 26. I don't want to hold you because I know you got things to do. We all do. But I so appreciate the passion and the information that you have brought to us today. And we look forward to the next conversation because I want to get an update on Niger and Mali, because we're hearing about Burkina Faso, but we're not hearing too much about Niger and Mali and what's going on there. But I know the things that are happening in those countries are as pivotal as what's going on in Burkina Faso today. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Brother Sekou.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
I will just read a short from the book to those who will still want to get this book. So just on the cover here, I'm reading. In 1958, in Accra, Ghana, the Hands Up Africa Conference brought together leading figures of African independence in a public show of political strength and purpose, led by charismatic Kwame Nkrumah, who had just won Ghana independence. His determined call for Pan-Africanism was heeded by young idealistic leaders across the continent and by African Americans seeking civil rights at home. Yet, a moment that signified a new era for African freedom simultaneously marked a new era for foreign intervention and control. That's something to think about. The very dawn of our independence, we call the civil rights leader in America, let's unite and find forces. That was the beginning. They started infiltrating our organization to destroy and give us this chaotic future that we are in right now. That's why we need to know they are always planning how to make our future chaotic. I'll leave you with
absolutely that. Absolutely. And I want to end with that and saying that, and the reason why I wanted to have this talk about this show, like I said at the top of the show, we always here in America, asking questions like, why is this going on in Africa? Why do it always seem to be sickly and turmoil? Why the leaders seem corrupt? And this has been, I've seen Europeans come on different channels and different lectures that I've heard them talk about, it's their job to keep the southern equator the way it is right now, because their livelihood depends on keeping their foot on the neck of these folks. And we all know different pastors around here, different leaders around here that don't have the best interests of their people and can be paid off. They purposely look for these type of leaders and put them in place, and so they can turn a blind eye to all the stealing and raping that is going on there. They put together serious mind controlling and dominating, just like they did us, where they would take the strong buck and beat them in front of everybody and make everybody else shy about doing anything. So they killed Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, Steve Biko, all these old folks that tried to step up. They took them out just like our leaders and our revolutions over here. So it's the same plan, the same program. We must understand that. You know, you got African people over there. We sitting here talk about history. We sitting here talk about February and Black History Month. You know, the same thing happened over there. They won't even teach them their history. You got folks that's living right there on the motherland that don't know their history. That's purposeful. See, in order to control the people, you know, and it's crazy at this point in time that we haven't figured this out. What Malcolm said: how do you let your oppressors teach your children? That's how you perpetuate this madness that we seeing and we talking about right there. So Black folks, African Americans, we need to understand this. I truly believe that Africa is our salvation. There's only 43 million of us over here in this country. You got 1.4 billion people over there in Africa, you know? And so this, that is tied to these resources, that are tied to this thing, and a lot of these countries are asking for you to come over. And of course, there's going to be a little friction because they don't know us and we don't know them. And when I make this move of trying to get over there, that's going to be my mission too, in bridging that particular gap and letting folks understand that both sides have to be educated on what's going on. It's imperative that we do that. So it's a beautiful thing that, you know, and I think it was something that we have to talk about, you know, is very, very important. And you need to know that, you need to wise up to know that this is a covert and a lot of times overt plan to keep Africa the way it is and show you all those negative things. And the last thing I'm gonna say, talk to a newly immigrant here. It could be white or Black, and ask them what have they heard about the African Americans in this country, and sit back and watch what they say, what they've been shown, and what they've been told about African Americans over here. Not to deal with it. It's ugly. They steal, they rob it, and don't get offended for what they say. And then they tell us the same thing on the other side. They hungry. You got grown folks still talking about, do they live in houses? Do they got supermarkets? That's to keep us apart now. So this is a work in progress. And so we're going to have to mend this situation, and, you know, and I truly believe it's a salvation, and I believe it's divine order. For what we see in this wake-up call that is going on, I believe it's divine. And we need to get on the right side of history and understand and partake in that for those who are conscionable and understand what is exactly going on globally.
All right. Great show today, Brother Hamptonio. Sekou really brought it to us. Unfortunately, he had to step away. I just want to ask those who are viewing us on YouTube, if you wouldn't mind, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Again, it will be a great help to us in our platform and our efforts to get this type of content, because you're not getting this on terrestrial radio in many places in this country, but we are able to bring this to you via YouTube and reach folks around the world. Earlier today, we had someone visiting us all the way from the UK. Of course, they are aware of Brother Sekou and aware of his passion for this information. So again, do us a big favor, subscribe to the channels, this channel and the Journey with Hamptonio, and help us move this forward. Again, great show. Thanks for watching. I was going to say thanks for listening, but I'll say thanks for watching, and plan to join us on the next time. Hit the notification bell and you will know when we are on the air again. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your absolute best day. Peace, y'all.
Peace.